Okay, so now what we're going to look at is how do we make something that's a little bit more dynamic where we have a graphical user interface that allows the user to do things. So what we're going to look at here is some code. So when you type it up, what you're going to see is we have our import statement. I have a frame that's created that's 500 by 500. We have a label. We have a button handler, an input handler, and then we have button and input, and then we start our frame. You'll notice here there's no draw handler on this one, so when we run it, we have nothing that's going to show up here on our black screen. There's nothing on the canvas. But what I do have is I have button 1 in my input box. So the idea with a button, right, is that you can click a button, so I could press on it. My input box, I can enter a value. So if I hit like 56 and enter, things happen. Now what the computer will do is these are events. So it basically is waiting for events to happen. And then when they do, it goes and does what you tell it to when those events happen. So what we have are events and event handlers. So when we do this down here, we say button 1. Frame.add button. This is the text that shows up on it. So if I change it to click me, okay, when that button is clicked, it's going to go up to whatever function is put here. So if we just call it button handler, it's going to go up and do what's on button handler. And so when we run it, you can see now I get click me, and then when we do that, make this a little smaller, we can see that it just prints to the console. If we wanted another button, we can copy that and add our code there. I'll just call it button 2 and then click me again. Now, if I don't change the button handler, you'll see here when I run it, I get another button and I have the same functionality as the other one because those buttons are both registered to the same button handler. So if I wanted to adjust it and have another button handler, I need another function. So I'm going to come here and add it, and then I'm going to say like again, good work. So now when I run this, I now have two handlers, two events that I can toggle. So I have click me, press the button, press me again, good work. So those again will register different pieces. It's the same idea with my input box. When I type in 45, I get and hit enter, it's going to go to that event. So a button can be pressed, that's the event. When you enter text into an input box, you need to hit enter at the end, and that's what will trigger that event from going there. Now, if we wanted things to show up on a canvas, we would then need to look at a draw handler. So we would define something with a draw handler, and we would need to draw it to the canvas. So we can go back to what we had on the previous one. So we had before this code, we had a draw handler, okay? And so here, right, we had this code that showed up. So I'm going to copy some of that, and I'm going to put it into my code sculptor piece. And let's say I'm going to draw the text. I forgot my C. Draw text for the button handlers. So when I try to run this, let's see what happens. So I run it and I press the button and it shows up over there, but nothing's happening on my canvas. What we have to remember is making this function is not setting a draw handler. So we can create as many functions as we want. We have to connect it to the GUI. And so if we go back and see what we missed from the one before, we can see that, oh, we haven't set this draw handler. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to bring it in. And now what I should see is my draw handler is going to be set to this thing here. And so we'll see what happens. Now, when I go here, it says right off the bat that I pressed the button. Well, that's not quite what I wanted. What I wanted to see was it actually show up there when I press the button. So one of the things that we're going to do, and let's make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. And let's make it, move it down and across a little bit, is we would draw nothing to begin with. Okay, so we're going to have some message. And so what we're going to say is, all right, message is nothing. So now, when I run it, there's nothing there, and that's good. What I want is my button to start to change that message. So if I look at button 1, I'm going to make a global change to message. If I don't make it global, it's just going to make a local variable there. And then I'm going to say message equals button pressed, something like that. So now what we're going to hope is that our canvas is blank, and that when we press the button, we actually get that text to show up on the screen. So over 250 was a little bit too far. Let's just make it 50. And when I run it again, there we go. We press the button. So that's kind of where we're leading, is where we get buttons and input boxes that's going to modify things and deal with our canvas.